Report just rated the CRV Best Compact SUV for the money. Great prices, great selection, and the industry's best products make now the perfect time.
WMAN News Radio 98.3.
Gentlemen, this is the Brock Lawley program. My name is Brock Lawley. Thank you for joining me. It's a Sunday afternoon. You might be in your garage. I don't know. You're probably top-down driving the last of summer-like weather, trying to squeeze every drop out of that summer sponge. I know I am. A little windy out there, though. I opened the door coming in here, and it kind of felt like I brought a tornado with me. So be careful. Maybe you're watching some football, got a jersey on with Cheeto crumbs, and you're taking a halftime break. But whatever the case, I'm privileged and thrilled to be talking to you. I love this format. I love talk radio. I think it's one of the coolest forms of media. Get to pull up a chair at the intellectual table of ideas. And this will be a little palate cleaner because I know the Indians are coming up, and the radio legend is manning the table for me here. Gary, he just delivered a great show. And we're going to dragnet the news, so we're going to palate clean a little bit. Talk about the Let Them Eat Cake crowd at Washington, D.C., and kind of expose what they're doing in the long, dark shadows of their power over your lives. The news headlines, I will admit to you, lately they seem pretty bleak, like a Detroit City night, I suppose. But I'll try to make them palatable. I'll try to lure you away from the temptation of the ignorance is bliss apathy, which I can totally relate to. But the truth is that there are a lot of fires and not enough water. And I really truly believe that the good have to do something. You know, I believe that. I'm going to talk to you a lot about Iraq today, and I want to set that up by telling you, I walked the sands of Iraq. I did a tour for the United States Air Force, and so the subject matter interests me. And it's very possible that you thought you woken up in a daze of deja vu with the headlines regarding Iraq recently. You might have thought you went to sleep at night and woke back up in 2006, because quite frankly, you can't write this kind of irony. The Iraq president, the anti-Iraq president, who literally launched his political career from zero to hero on the back of hyperbolic anti-war, anti-Bush demagoguery, is now marred neck deep in the new Iraq war. Saturday Night Live couldn't touch this thing with a 10-foot-long pole. And despite all the Democratic talking points you're hearing in the press corps, without a doubt, this is a war. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand this because it could be your neighbor, your son, your friend. This stuff is high-stakes poker. It's pretty serious. And, I know that the press secretary is going to tell you that it's not a war. He's going to convince you that it's some sort of UN-approved romper room session. But, I assure you, there's nearly 1,000 troops on the ground. You got all the brass, all the generals calling for more. You got warbirds dropping fiery sulfur hell from the sky on at least 3 Middle Eastern countries now. So you got to thread a semantics needle pretty tight to say that this isn't a war. No, I don't think people even conceptualize what this is. You're literally sending men and women into harm's way with this stuff. So we should be kicking it around. And so in case you haven't been paying attention, let me bring you up to speed. So the blood for oil, Halliburton, anti-Iraq, flank Hillary Clinton from the left candidate is now the president with a newly imprinted footprint in the sands of Iraq in his own war. The same Iraq that Obama insisted just 2 years ago that was secure, sovereign, sufficient. I remember him calling it a success as he pulled up the stakes and bailed out. The same Iraq. This is the situation we're talking about. So he failed to get a status of forces agreement, and essentially you'll hear a lot about that. But what that is this happened in Japan, this happened in Germany, this happens whenever the United States kind of leaves war in its wake. You set up shop a little bit. There's a lot of debatable talking points as to whether that's a good idea or not. But what Obama did in Iraq is he allowed the newly formed Iraq parliament to decide on this. These guys can't agree on the time of day. And so needless to say, he was sort of setting it up because he wanted to get the heck out of there. And this was all despite the many voices, promptly silenced, by the way, with pink slips in the administration. He silenced any voices, anybody wearing military brass brave enough to tell the president that this isn't good. And why did they do that? Because they had the intel. They cared about it. They had been invested for a long time. They knew that Iraq would leave mass killings in its wake if we left a power vacuum there. They knew that leaving the most dangerous region of the world without any sign of the United States after we just came in there and swatted the bee's nest a couple times is not exactly wise. Nobody said that we needed to be there forever, but you needed to take this strategy via military intelligence, not political intelligence, especially when so much blood, treasure, American lives were spent. But nobody tells Barry to sit in the corner. So Barack Obama, in all his military prowess and war knowledge, decided that he was going to drop a stupidity stick down the powder keg of the Middle East, and he vanished Iraq like a derelict father who owes child support, in my opinion, and left a situation there that now is transcending into many levels of Dante's Inferno, in my opinion. So that's where we sit now. That's exactly where it is. Despite all the blood, the treasure, all the lives, it was politics. It was 2012 re-election strategy that determined what happened there. Not generals, not strategy, not common sense, and not wisdom. And you jump ahead, and that's where we find ourselves, isn't it? When people forget that these were human beings that went over there. I know they're news headlines to so many people. I get that. I understand that. And they're depressing. But war should not be talking points on a president's teleprompter, as he, makes a re-election bid. That should not be the case. I remember this. Do you remember this one? The war on terror is dead and GM is alive. Do you remember that? The war on terror is dead and GM is alive. Jump ahead now. GM is now bankrupt to its knees and embroiled in one of the largest automotive recalls in history. And the war on terror is now a multi-headed dragon breathing and head-lopping and genocidal fire all over the globe. So, the war on terror is dead and GM alive. It doesn't exactly hold the same water, does it? And, the truth is that, Obama does deserve the consequences for the present state. Bush deserves consequences, too. This whole thing flaring up on us again like hemorrhoids. That's really not the point, is it? That's not the point. That's like spiking the football in your own end zone to some extent, because you can blame shift and you can do all this. And I think there is a certain level of importance in understanding how these things came about. But the truth is, what I see is my country playing some sort of whack-a-mole game with an enemy, chasing our tails, bouncing from one war to another war, no goal, no commitment. We don't even have a willingness to name this enemy, to call this enemy by its real name. I see congressmen, I see the UK prime minister, I see our own president strangled by a political correct muzzle. The military people like me continuously forced to fight a politically correct war with a politically correct cord tying our hands behind our back. And then we're sent into the dangerous theater of war. We repeatedly do this. We send people into the eye of the storm, not with a focus of the mission, not with a clear vision of how we accomplish the goal and a clear understanding of the enemy. No, we do this with thick Tolstoy-style manuals with rules and regulations and how not to offend the barbaric 13th century Sharia law traditions. And we arrest our own soldiers. We throw them in Leavenworth for the slightest infractions. And don't doubt me that this happens. I had a friend of mine who got busted rank in theater while serving because he had a beer. We weren't allowed to have beer in the theater of war. Did you know that? Did you know that none of the vices that we enjoy in the West, none of the vices are your young men and women allowed to enjoy over there? I mean, imagine being in the throes of war and not being able to take the edge off with a Bud Light. And we do this to be respectful of the traditions and the culture in this area. And then the media turns around, maligns us. I don't know if you remember that 52 straight days of headlines in the New York Times trashing the troops. Do you remember that? This is during the Bush administration. I remember it. I was in theater. I remember this, making up stuff, throwing gasoline on a fire. I remember this ideology and I remember this thinking. When I was serving just a little while ago, now it's these same people. It's these exact same talking heads, these exact same politicians that are now talking about the Iraq war again. You can't even choke this jagged pill down, to be honest with you. And let me be very clear on this. They're not militants. They're not freedom fighters. They're not victims of American imperialism. They're the latest human monsters to veer their head upon the timeline of human history, and they're every bit as evil as Genghis Khan and communism and Stalin. I got a call here. I'm going to break stride, and I think this is going to be a little more lighthearted.
This is Andy.
Hi, Andy.
Hi.
I actually met Andy, and I told Andy to call me in and break stride. I knew I'd be on some tear, some demagoguery or whatever. So Andy is she runs the Youth for Christ? Is that right?
Yes.
The Youth for Christ chapter right here in Mansfield, and I wanted Andy to call up because Andy is doing amazing work there, and I wanted you to know about it. So, Andy, go ahead in a couple of seconds here. Let them know what you do real quick.
Okay. I work for Youth for Christ, and we reach at-risk teenagers right where they are, just building relationships with them, meeting with them in schools and different facilities, trying to catch up with them after they've been into some trouble to help them get their life straight. And we're doing that in a bunch of different ways, but it's amazing to see the changes that are made once we connect with these kids.
I was talking to Andy. Andy goes and spends her time in the prisons with halfway houses and the transitional situations we have in our society for young youth who are ensnared in trouble. And Andy really does roll up her sleeves and do the hard work. And I know, Andy, I know you raise money, and I know your work is all charity. Can they reach out to you if they want to support it? Where do they reach out to you at?
Yes, they can email me, and I'd be happy to sit down with them or talk to their small groups, talk to them about the ministry. They could email me at andicingcc@yahoo.com. Again, that's Andy, A-N-D-I, King, K-I-N-G, C-C @yahoo.com.
Andy, thanks so much for what you do, and thanks for calling me. The famous Youth for Christ, this is Billy Graham, I think's legacy, and thank you so much for calling. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brock.
So make sure you reach out. You know, this is important, guys. These are pillars in our society. They're the unseen heroes, the people in the trenches, and I really respect what Andy wants to do there, and I wanted to support her. So if you can help in any way, time, finances, etc., give her a call. Reach out to Andy. The radio legend Gary is cracking the whip at me here, so we're going on a break, and I'm going to come back and close up that segment on Iraq. This is the Brock Lawley Show.
The iHeartRadio app versus a taco. Know the facts. You can only put so much in a taco shell, but the iHeartRadio app lets you build custom radio stations from over 20 million songs. Tacos are cheesy. The iHeartRadio app is classy, offering your favorite radio stations and hosts. Plus, the iHeartRadio app won't drip guacamole on your shirt. Millions of songs, thousands of stations, one free app. iHeartRadio is that easy. Download the iHeartRadio app today or listen online at iHeartRadio.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Lawley. It's the Brock Lawley Show. I'm your fearless host, and I'm back with you now. I wanted to, before I dive back in to the Myra and the Muck, I wanted to tell you that this Tuesday night, the 23rd, I'm going to be playing at the Waterford. This is the state and local Republican candidates. So this is the Meet the Candidates night. The Richland County Republican women are putting this event on. You can reach out to Robin at 419-545-2143. There's going to be a chance to meet your politicians, meet your local representatives, etc. I'm also going to be playing some music. The opening song to this radio show is mine. I'm a musician. I'm going to be playing some music, some of the stuff I played at CPAC this year. Again, Tuesday night, September 23rd, 7 p.m. Guys, I wanted to continue on with this theme, and basically I want to wrap it up like this. What we do is I call it whack-a-mole, or what we've been doing for the last couple years is we puff up our peacock feathers and we send troops to war, and we just basically chase our tail, because the same enemy basically does this. They put on a different costume, they put their insignia on a different flag, and then we go chasing after them. But essentially, we have an ideological war going on. That's what we have. We have an ideological war. And yes, there needs to be force. And yes, oftentimes you have to beat back evil with force, just sheer force. That's just the reality of the life that we live in this world. I don't like it any more than you do. But the truth be told, it's an ideological war. That's the thing that's so frustrating to me, especially having fought this one. You know, Stalin, for example, perpetrated heinous crimes upon millions of his own citizens under the name of communism. This sort of collectivist, statist ideology was evil. We called it evil. Reagan called it evil. Our leaders of the past called it evil throughout the globe, and we fought it as an ideology, and we showed with the juxtaposition a different way to live, a different way to look at things. And we attacked that militarily, but we also attacked that by way of ideas, and it's the same here. Hitler's fascism. Can you imagine Roosevelt going on, much like Obama just did, and saying, our plan for fighting Hitler's fascism is to, cheerlead and give a round of applause to the French, the surrender monkey, cheese-eating, white flag-waving French. And we're just going to see how that goes. That's not how FDR dealt with it. He said this is a fascistic evil marching across the globe, and we have to confront it. He confronted it with his rhetorical skills. He confronted it by way of casting a vision, and militarily. You know, people don't think that this stuff can change, but I just got done reading a book called Unbreakable about Louis Zamperini. And here, this guy was captured by the Japanese. These guys were horrible people back in the day. They treated their POWs worse than animals, worse than insects. And jump ahead, jump ahead to your time. That doesn't happen. Why? Because the United States, first of all, broke that evil ideology over its knee and then replaced it with a different way